Round 2 coming live at you from the United Kingdom at Brands Hatch. It's season 9 of the GT Sprint Challenge. Welcome back in after an electric first round. Round number 2, some drivers have some making up to do while others are trying to keep the momentum. And you know what's interesting about it all? We've added more drivers to the fray. On top of that, hello everybody, I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Ted Edwards today with Ryan Gill behind the cameras. Wherever you are in the world, we hope that you're having a fantastic Friday evening. We thank you for spending just a little bit of that time with us here. Ted, welcome in and welcome home.
Thank you, Jesse. Yeah, it's quite nice to be at the Brands Hatch today. I was expecting a bit of rain, but it's pretty dry here in the UK. Many of you know it's a bit cold recently, but it doesn't stop people from doing some driving as we're watching Hugo go round for their qualifying. How have you been, Jesse?
I have been fantastic. You know, we started these championships a week ago and it was immediately electric, and we come to a racetrack here in the United Kingdom that I think can also provide those fireworks that we saw from a week ago. And this is one of the drivers that might have a little bit of a redemption arc. Hugo Merrils, who didn't quite have the race one that they would have liked to have had. They've got some demons here at Brands Hatch too, Ted, as well. They've been in position to win races. They've had wrecks. They've been spun out of first place. It's all gone a bit pear-shaped sometimes for Hugo Merrils. But qualifying here for the 65-minute race, of course, they had 10 minutes of qualifying to get the job done. A little over 8 of that left to go. Hugo Merrils on the first flying lap of the day up into Druids.
65-minute race is something we haven't seen for, I don't ever think we've seen it before. Well, obviously, apart from round 1, but I haven't seen it, so this is something new for me. And it's definitely a different format, and it's going to be something new for everyone. I quite like this.
It is a interesting thing. We talked about it a little bit last week about how it changes your fuel strategy. Of course, you have a 25-second pit stop and 1 liter of fuel required. Whatever you do with the remaining 20-some-odd seconds sitting still in the pit lane, that's completely up to you. Hugo has been all over the racetrack here and trying to get the absolute best out of it. Nearly lost it, I thought, coming through some of the back half of the corner. I think that was Sheen's they went through, going through Sterling's now, and now into Clearways, the straight with a little bit of a drop into Clark Curve onto the Brabham Straight. That's anything but this iconic racetrack that's been here for absolutely, what is it, 70, 60, 70 years, something like that at bare minimum. Merrils does come across the line to set the first representative time. It's a 22.525 for the John Lacey Esports Academy driver.
Immediately taken off top spot by Dylan Tan with a 22.240. So that that McLaren showing that, you know, it's pretty quick around the track. And I've driven here in this car, Jesse. It is a very, very fun and very, very fast. So definitely the manufacturer car that I will probably see near the top for most of the drivers, but you never know. We do have some fast people in this split.
Well, the McLarens did not find the track to their liking in race number 1, but today a completely different story. The McLarens are home after all, and they're doing a good bit of the work, and you'll see a couple of new drivers. I alluded in the intro that we had a couple of new drivers, mid-season signups. Of course, no matter what championship's going on here at RCI, you can sign up mid-season, and Jardier has done exactly that, sporting what appears to be a new livery. It's got, I believe that's his dog on the side of it. I think it's got his face on there. It's a red, white, and blue camo pattern. Very interesting style there. Got a doggo on there, got himself on there, driving for the community team. Mid-season sign-up. Look for Jardier to do some damage. Was good enough for top 5 his first lap. By other drivers have beaten that, including the Rocket Simsport driver, Valentin Berrier.
Just seeing Jesse, Hugo just did a 22.075, and immediately after Dylan Tan does a 22.035. So they are so close, fighting for that pole position now. And Only 5 minutes left now to see if that number 13 Ferrari can go any faster. Cracking laps.
Mountain Barrier, it got bumped out of the top 2 rows, but then immediately gets it back. A huge slide into Paddock Hill Bend that time. Was that fast or slow? We'll have to tell you when they come back around. Dylan Tan still the fastest on the racetrack thus far. Samir Foch, who had a up and down race number 1, ultimately finished inside the top 5. Looking at P7 right now. Savalainen, your winner from a week ago, just outside the top 5. Sherritt has the final spot in the top 5 for the time being. Simon here in the number 7, the Squadra Corsa liveried car in 17th place. He's 1.2 off the overall pace. A lot of drivers here down near the bottom of this grid that I don't think are going to stay there.
4 minutes of qualifying left, and obviously some drivers still on laps, so anything can happen, Jesse. We've seen many times before drivers go faster, getting knocked off, and as we see here, Hugo's put another gap between them and Dylan Tan with 21.972, so 0.6 between them. And let's just see there, another McLaren has joined them, Jonathan in the 97 with a 22.182. So Hugo Merrill's with that brilliant lap of 21.972 was trying to improve, I think, as they came through Surtees and must have lost a bunch of time. They have reset, but still good enough for P1 right now. Tan and Seville, the top 3. Barrier, Sherritt, the top 5. Everyone else continuing to pound around and make lap time. Samir Foch, the last time here in RCI competition in a Ferrari around Brands Hatch, had a okay day. It was a top 5 day for Foch, but it wasn't spectacular. They might have had a little bit of issue with getting the pit strategy right, or might have just been on the wrong side of history for the pit strategy that particular weekend with the mixed conditions. Look to see if they can repeat the top 5 or better here today, keeping their championship hopes alive. Jardier inside the top 10 now. Agner Radikov, who was 20-something about a couple of minutes ago, now up into P11. Yeah, it's just noticing, obviously I haven't seen the round 1, but these manufacturers, there's not many of the Porsches to be seen, but there's a load of the NSXs, so that's quite nice to see. I haven't seen as many NSXs race for quite a long time, Jesse, so it's
yeah,
pretty nice to see.
NSX is pretty okay around here, and we've seen Valentin Barrier use that car before to decent effect. The only thing I'd worry about, and this is something you can watch for at home, folks, that NSX likes to fall off halfway through a stint. Will it happen today? Is the setup favorable? Is the weather favorable? We'll have to find out. I know a little bit of wet weather, though it is a bit of a dagger, it also can save that car some of the time, but time will only tell if we get any of that today.
See Jordan Daly down there in that Bentley. That's a surprising car choice, knowing that this track's in the mix. We don't see many Bentleys nowadays, but still trying to give a good crack at it. And all I can assume is he's struggling around this track. It's quite a difficult track, Jesse, to get perfect. Like the McLaren just sticks so well, and I guess that obviously the Ferrari, as we see in the NSX, is sticking really well to this track. You just got to give it your all, like all the time. It's every corner has to be perfect, and you're really pushing the car in its limit.
Dylan Tan retakes quickest lap of the race. It's a 21.947. That's 25/100ths quicker than Hugo Merrill's is able to do. Those two separated by less than a half, call it a quarter of a second, because it is. Everybody else a little bit distant behind them, 0.2 or more, but it's a heck of a battle for third place on the second row of the grid. Those two cars separated by just about the same amount, a quarter of a tenth for the third place spot. And all that really does is switch which side of the row that you're on. And every time we come to Brands Hatch, I bring this up. It might matter what side you start on, considering turn 1, Paddock Hill Bend. You might want to not be on the outside. I know some drivers argue they do want to be on the outside. Valentin Berrier wants to be on the third place position, and that's what he's taken. 2/10 off the overall, but still an impressive lap out of that Honda.
Jonathan going a bit sideways out of that corner there, but still on for an improvement on their best lap so far. Let's see what they can do in the final corner and see if they can hold on to that time as they come up to it. It'll be the third place, knocking Barrier down again at 122.080, so a pretty good lap from them. Have to see if Cody can improve on that and knock them down.
It's getting really close. Seville broke under that 2/10 of a barrier that we had to the leaders, and it's getting a lot better. You got Berrier, who has also come in. Hugo Merrill's is in. Seville is in. No movement there. It's all on Cody Sheridan, the 38, the BWSR McLaren, that 38 car. They're a little over 3/10 of a second off the fastest time, but they're up on the time right now. They can't get distracted. They did run off the road just a little bit. I think that was Westfield and Sheeds, but now they might not even be on a valid lap here, as we'll wait for confirmation as they cross the line. Dylan Tan, your pole sitter, currently provisionally into the pit lane, and no, that was an improvement for Sheridan, a 2.35, a 22.235. And that will all but end qualifying Dylan Tan on the pole position here today. And as we always say, Ted, that's good, because that's bonus points.
Or is Jesse. You always want to get those extra few points. You never know what's going to happen throughout the championship. Anything can happen.
And if it can happen, it certainly will happen here, and we'll have to see how the race start goes. Of course, we say hello to our lovely armada of stewards here on a Friday evening. And by the way, chat, I think, was outraged as quickly as I've ever seen them be outraged. We're at Brands Hatch. We're in the UK. Our standby screen is raining, but it's not raining on the racetrack. False advertising for Britain, I think they are arguing. Also some love for the NSX having 5 in the race. People love to see the wild card choices, and we love to see them as well. Here are the results of qualifying. Dylan Tan on pole, a 21.947, good enough for the pole position. Hugo Merrill's will line up opposite him, 25 100ths off of the pole position, has the quickest of all third sector, and Seville in third place had the quickest middle sector. So nobody taking more than one sector there. That's usually good for the racing product there. Outside of the top 3, Berrier, Neville, Sherritt, Allen, Patterson, Foch, Savalainen, your championship leader, just inside the top 10. Outside of that, Soldatov, Hanzik, Simonara, Ognaradikov, O'Brien, Billen, and the list definitely goes on. A couple of interesting, notable drivers way down the grid. Aaron Trout in 26th place and John Razor in 24th. Jordan Daly outside the top 20. All very interesting.
Yeah, it's quite surprising from John Razor being in that McLaren. It's unless it's just hasn't got the right setup or just didn't get a good qualifying lap, might show us in the race that they do have the pace and can get the laps down. But people make mistakes in qualifying. Sometimes you just can't get the lap in, but you never know. And like I said before, with Jordan Daly, could be the Bentley's isn't that great around here. It's quite heavy car. I haven't driven it ever, so I'm no expert in what I say. But yeah, it's also there's an M4 at the back, which I was quite surprised. The only M4 we have here. Remember, we used to see flocks of them, Jesse, and now they've always disappearing off again. But it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, of course, the M4, when it was brand new, it was a very popular choice. BOP changes, of course, have changed how people race and what they choose. We showed you how they'll line up today. Let's show you how they finished 1 week ago. The GT Sprint Challenge in its 9th season. This, of course, the pro field. Joona Savalainen had a fantastic battle in Italy a week ago and ended up coming home a well-deserved victor. Another victory at that track for Savalainen, 68 points there. Dylan Tan, second place, 62. Joshua Allen, the final step of the podium, 53. Hugo Merrill's in fourth, and Samir Foch round out your top five. Outside of that, Cody Sherratt had a good run as well. And outside the top 10, Konstantin Soldatov, 25 points. Wouter Billen, Melis, Seitan and a Razor, Louis Alexander, Aaron Trout, Fry, John Gohan, and Jordan Daly, your top 20. Outside of this, a lot of these drivers have zeros in the column, meaning they either did not complete 85% of the first race or they were mid-season signups. A lot of these drivers are mid-season signups like Jardier, Berrier, and etc. Javier Marquez, who did get points in round number 1, has signed out and therefore forfeited his championship. Well, there's are the championship standings for round number 1. How will today complicate things, especially with Savalainen, Ted, in 10th place, not really in a position to fight for the win today. If you are a driver that has qualified in front of him, if you are like a Samir Foch, for instance, who had a decent start to the season, but find yourself in an advantageous spot ahead of some of the other competitors, you've got to be thinking maybe just play it by ear here today. Play it a little bit safe. Go home with more points than the championship leader. Get yourself back into this thing.
Yeah, I was just looking at the AMGs in whole. They're 10th, 12th, and 14th. So they've got 2 cars in between them all to be together, but they're sitting together sort of in the mid pack, if you like, more towards the front. But they yeah, that surprised me. But they're still within a second of Dylan Tan, all the way down to 16th is within a second. So it's pretty close. Just have to see what these Mercedes do. I wouldn't say this track is a Mercedes favourite, but they done pretty well to be where they are, and especially for Honzik, who's first time here with us on this Friday champ, and placed it on the 10th on the grid, so can't be too bad around here.
The Mercedes is a enigma, I think, for a lot of people. They usually write it off due to BOP, but I'm telling you, if you tune that car right, it holds up in the second half of a stint the way some of these other cars don't, and you can claw back positions. How do I know that? I saw Savalainen do that here last time we raced GT3s around Brands Hatch. He was sort of where he is now, 8th or so, but late into the race, when it really mattered, he kept climbing up the leaderboard. We'll see if they can recapture some of that magic. Otherwise, it is a bit of a McLaren fest inside the top 10. Just about half of the positions, in fact, exactly half of the top 10 positions are owned by McLaren, a couple of Ferraris, the lone Honda, and Porsche. Allen doing a great job in the Porsche here to keep that car inside the top 10. Again, looking for another good points day. Surprised some, did Allen, race number 1 at a speed track in the Porsche. We talked at length about how the BOP is kind of favorable at Monza. Will it be favorable today for grip? I think it could indeed be. What's the weather looking like? It's just about perfect. 18 degrees C, match track and ambient. Just a 2 kilometer wind, I should say, that is blowing down the Pilgrim's Drop section of the racetrack, blowing across the front straight, and just cloudy. The track, it could not be better. Optimum grip for today's race. I don't think we're going to get that thunderstorm, Ted.
Yeah, I don't think so, Jesse. It's too perfect for the British weather, but we'll roll with it, as we always do. It's good track conditions, I would say, especially for Brands Hatch when you want to. It's a very fast track, and you're really on the edge with your car. So rain here would be a bit of a nightmare, but it looks pretty nice. I would love to have these.
Looks like a very picturesque day. Keep in mind, these GT3 machines, they're all very different. This is probably the most different of the pack. We're looking at Jordan Daly's car. He's on the, I would call it the wrong side of the car, but others would disagree. They would say that is the correct side of the car. I've heard other people say that driving a Bentley here gives you somewhat of an advantage being on the side of the the right side of the car. It helps you position the car in some of the more tricky corners. Here we go. 65-minute race. There is a mandatory pit stop, 25 seconds, 1 liter of fuel required. We'll talk more about that as the race goes on, but for now, it's Dylan Tan and Hugo Merrill's on the front row who will take advantage down into turn number 1 and beyond up into Druids. We're about to find out. The entire field, 23 plus strong. The green flag is out and immediately off. Down into turn number 1, Tan gets a clean breakaway. Merrill's down into second place. Seville and Barrier continue to fight. A little bit of a squirrely jump there from Tan as he's going to get an immediate lunge from Merrill's trying to go around the outside. Here comes Seville. Barrier falling back just a little bit around the outside. Doesn't work for Merrill's. He's going to have to defend from Seville. That releases Tan. Tan is gone, and the battle is for second place now.
They're still fighting in the back. As you can see, we do have one DT, which we'll get to in just a second, but looks like there's 2 cars that are white flagged at the moment, but they are still going. I'll have to have a look at that in a moment as well. But yeah, it's very close so far. Everyone in single file now. That is what you should expect around here. It's very hard to overtake. Not something you want to dive into a corner and try and take position there. It's more about keeping in the slip and just keep the toe going. If you lose that toe, it's pretty painful. But anything can happen. You mess up a corner, you lose a lot of ground.
Big crash off into the background. Was that Cody Sherritt? It might have been some car off massively. That might have been Neville. I think that might have been Neville. Somebody was off in a big way. Don't know if that was contact or if that was self-induced, but it certainly was a McLaren. It might have been Neville. We'll know when they come across the line, and it was Neville.
I missed that. Good spot, Jesse Lee.
That was absolutely terrifying. We were staring down the straight, and the car just got completely sideways. I could only make out the silhouette of the car. No, it was a McLaren. I had no idea. We have a couple of cars in today's race that are baby blue and light pink, I would call that, or just regular pink. Not quite pastel. So played tricks on me a little bit, but yeah, Neville doesn't look like the car's damaged. Might have just got it a bit wrong over the curbs, Ted.
It's so easy just to get a curb wrong, and it can pull the car in a different way you want to go, and snap the rear, bring out the front, or whatever it does, it really messes you up, and you've not really got much room to go off here. If you go off on a corner, you end up in a barrier. So well held, doesn't look like it's got any damage. It's just unlucky really. But that drive through that I saw at the beginning would be for out of position on the start, and that was the 16 Peter O'Brien. So they have come in and done their drive through now. So that's very unfortunate, but these things do happen.
Yeah, being out of position on the start's actually quite simple. You're given a graphic up on the screen when you're a driver. You're told where you need to be, what your tolerance is for how close or behind you can be, and even indeed your speed that is required. And if you are in violation of those starting parameters, you get an instant drive-through for being out of position, and that has happened to O'Brien, unfortunately, for today's race. That has put him near the back. A couple of cars have already pitted. Now the pit window is open, and they are taking the very early stop. Now, we saw the early stop work out. It wasn't quite this early, admittedly, 1 week ago. We'll see if that holds true today. A little bit of squabbling here between Jardier and Savalainen, fighting for that final spot, or excuse me, actually P9 they're fighting for. Meanwhile, Seminara is trying to take the best of their pure course action here. He gets a little contact there. Savalainen didn't see Seminara, and it almost ended in tragedy here as Neville's going to try and get one of those spots back. The Astons of Anifreev and Solitov are side by side. A little bit of a wide move there by Neville. Seminara tries to get a spot back and cannot do it. Stuck in 12th place in the 12th place car, and now here comes Anifreev and Solitov, who are fighting, or done fighting amongst themselves, and are trying to gain more positions. All kicked off there all of a sudden.
These drivers have also got to be careful with there's cars coming out of pit lane just now, and it's pretty tricky for the guys that are coming out of pit lane. It's a background. I just see Daly fighting with, I think that's Walt Billen. So here come the two Astons to now get the number 12 into the corner hairpin here, and should pull it off. Yeah, there's maybe the next Aston as well, but there's so much fighting. Honzik and Savolainen fighting. I know Savolainen from Night Owl Championship. He does not like to back down from a fight, and you could see there that they were really fighting, but does lose the position. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see them fighting again later on, back in the red, murky years. Looks like that.
I'm being told that 481 of John Gohan has received a drive-through for what I assume to be minor speeding in the pit lane.
Yeah, there is a drive-through. I do see Jesse Lisa. That's unfortunate, trying to go for the early pit, and it's not really paid off.
Well, I've been corrected in chat. We were talking at length about Neville's car colors, and I've been corrected that it's light red, not pink. Light red is, I mean, isn't that just pink?
It's just pink, yeah.
It's lightish red, I think a famous machinima used to say, but we'll see if that is indeed the case. It doesn't matter. It's a very beautiful looking car. And talking about Neville real quick, keep in mind, they spun out of, was it about 5th or 6th place? That car was completely sideways, and they only lost about 6 or 7 positions. They got back in the middle of the pack, and they've even gained a few spots since then. So whatever happened there, able to regain their composure quite quickly and get back into the race and into the fray. Clearly that car had pace in qualifying. We should continue to see them march towards the front. Jardier by Savolainen up into P9. Savolainen in 10th place right now. Neville right behind them for the time being. Simonara has lost a spot to Soldatov, and Aaron Trout, who was perhaps a bit surprising in qualifying, didn't qualify anywhere near the top 15 where we would expect them to be, and here they are in 18th already, putting pressure on Wouter, Billen, and Rattiani for another spot.
The 481 that we just see get a drive-through for minor speed in pit lane did pull off at the end of the exit, which yellow flag, and has now returned to the pit lane and was just sat there. So I think their race is over. As we see another yellow flag.
Simonara.
12. Yeah. Seen that. They have got going again. I can't see any damage from what I can see on a little screen I have. But that was stopped, maybe a spin, I would say, Jesse.
Now, I don't know if that was an accident that originated into Sheens and ended up into Sterling, but that car, either way, of Simon Simonara was stationary off the apex of Sterling's this last time through, and clearly they've dropped from what was a 11th, 12th place spot. They have dropped all the way. They were 13th, actually. They've dropped to 21st. They're about to gain 20th because Louis Alexander drove off the track into Graham Hill Bend that time. Always makes me feel good going through there getting free positions simply because I kept it on the racetrack. It's so easy to go off into Graham Hill.
Yeah, just looking at the 12, it doesn't have any damage, so I would say it was just a spin of their own accord, and everyone avoided it, which is always a good thing to hear, and it's glad that car doesn't have any damage themselves. But yeah, it's really, this track's so easy to lose the car because it seems nice and smooth, but there is bumps all around the back, the second part of the track, and you're really pushing it. You just have to brake every now and then just to get the car turned in a bit, but those bumps, if you're in a really stiff setup, it can knock the rear out, and the next minute you're in a spin. If you touch the grass, it's slidey, and you're off, sort of thing. So it is a difficult track, but it's so much fun.
No, it's absolutely true. And also factor into, I'm sure you know as well, certain cars take curbs differently. Some cars, as I like to refer to it, they can monster truck over the curbs. It doesn't matter. Other cars, it's a huge aero disadvantage or a field disadvantage to go through there over the curbs. Some cars you elect to miss them entirely. Others will, as I call it, monster truck over them. And that factors into how you race this racetrack. This track has some pretty gigantic curbs, I would say, and I think that's more to do with the profiling of the racetrack than the curbs themselves. But knowing what you can and can't get away with, we could just put a camera in Sheens the entire race and you'll see that every manufacturer has to take sheens in a different way as not to upset the car.
Yeah, it's the Mercs you see here, or you did see, and probably the M4 as well, they can take these curves here perfectly fine. They look flat, but they're not. They got a big bump in them, because obviously the grass has worn away. The ACC does replicate that pretty well. The McLarens, from experience, can't really take too much. You've got to make the setup work with it, as we see the number 12 come into the pit lane just there. But yeah, the McLaren, maybe the Lamborghini as well, that's probably going to struggle. Maybe the Porsche, I'm not too sure. But you want to run a sort of a stiff setup around here, just so you can get most of the lean onto the tyres, onto that left-hand set of tyres, to get the most grip. But obviously, if you run a stiffer setup, you're going to run into the issue of cutting a bit of that curb within track limits, of course, but you're going to cut it a bit and you're going to hit them bumps, and that could just unsettle the car and off you go for a spin.
Well, the Stewards are hard at work and they've had a lot to get through, and I've just seen exactly what they've been working so hard on. Lap 1, turn 3 incident involving the 161, the 16, the 45, and the 41. A stop and go 10 for car 161 for a multiple car takeout caused by the 161 braking too late and causing that pileup. So stop and go 10, a very rare penalty. You don't see that very often. That's almost exclusively used for multiple car takeouts and gross negligence sort of deal there. So rather unfortunately for them, they have had that penalty, which I believe they have to serve in the next 3 laps. Other than that, just some racing incidents here on lap 1 between the 12, the 991, and the 888, and another racing incident between the 197, the 29, the 16, and the 7. Unavoidable contact from all involved. I have a feeling that has something to do with the previous incident. And no further action between the 481 and the 181. Stop and go 10, though, that's a big penalty.
Oh, it's huge. It's pretty bad. You've got to coming down pit lane, you've got to park up, can't do anything, do the 10 seconds, and off you go again. It's like the last one you want to get. You know, a drive-through is as harsh as it is, as we've seen already. It's definitely one we see very rarely, but for something like that, obviously the stewards thought that was a deserving penalty, and yeah, I hardly see them, Jesse.
Yeah, of course, like I said, pretty much reserved for multi-car takeouts, and usually only seen for lap number 1 when due caution wasn't taken. But we spent a lot of time, we talked about the middle part of this field. Let's get a little closer to the front of the field. Dylan Tan leads by 1.7 seconds. I would hardly say that's comfortable, but it is a decent gap back to Hugo Merrill's in Seville in 3rd place. A further 1.3 off the back of Merrill's for the time being. Those 3 are all sorted. Behind them, it's anything but. Valentin Berrier up into 4th. You've got Sheridan 5th, and this driver, Kieran Pedersen, in the JP Motorsport car in 6th place. And if you look a little bit in that rearview camera, you will see the 888 Ferrari of Samir Foch. They're all coming together here. 4 cars just about under a blanket. 3 cars right now, about to be 4 cars under a blanket for 4th place.
Samir Foch, haven't seen that guy for a while, and here he is driving around in his, of course, the Ferrari. Just his fastest lap at 1:22.792, and that's 0.3 faster than the 3 cars in front, so he's really hammering along. The thing is, if he's going that fast and he keeps up that pace, a constant 22.7s or mid-22s, he's going to burn his tyres off, and we're going to have to take tyres in pit stop. That's another thing as well, Jesse. Obviously, at 25 seconds for fuel. If they take tyres, it's another 5 seconds on top, so that would be 30-second pit. Do they take the risk of a 5 second just for a fresh set of tyres?
Well, it's an interesting equation that most drivers will have thought about prior to today's race. Some of them will be making it up as they go. Actually lie about that. Most drivers, no matter what they tell you to your face, to your her face. They're making it up as they go simply because they're reacting to what is and isn't working out of the racetrack. So the way it works in this series, it's a 25-second stop where you are required to be stationary. What you do with that time beyond 1 liter of fuel required is up to you. Like Ted, like you said, 5 extra seconds, meaning a 30-second stop, gets you 4 brand new Pirelli tires on the car. You've got to wager every single week and hedge your bets. Is it worth it or not? We saw a split decision last week. We're going to see another one this week, and it will be critical for who is right, who's wrong. Now, the brilliant part about me saying that is I can't tell you who's right or wrong because it hasn't happened yet. Nobody's right or wrong yet.
I would take tyres, Jesse, just because this track really uses the tyres, and you're really pushing, like I've said before, you're really pushing the car to get the most grip out of it. You're almost always turning until you get to the big long straight and then the one before the last corner as well. You're always pressuring the tyres and churning away at them, so I would take a set of tyres, especially, you know, I don't think you'd lose anything too much. Yes, 5 seconds if the car in front doesn't take tyres, but then they're in on an older set from you, and maybe you can get better lap times, and then that's if you get them consistently.
Well, the data backs up everything you just said, because last time we were here, you know I love stats. The stats are this. Last time we were here, under similar conditions, I wouldn't say they were the same. It was quite a bit warmer the last time we were here, but tires were an absolute premium around here, and absolutely anybody who took tires gained at minimum 2 spots versus those that didn't, or gained, I think one car in the middle of the pack gained 25 seconds just by taking tires versus everyone around them not doing so. A lot of those drivers that were in that race are in this race here today. You also have to account for the race being 5 extra minutes long. It's not a 60-minute race. It's a 65-minute plus race, depending on where the leader crosses the line. It could be a 67-minute race almost for you. So all that considered, do you really want to do that on one set of tires? I agree with you. I don't think it's worth it. Take the tires.
It's a little bit scary when you've been running on an hour-long set of tyres. They get a little bit loose every now and then, and this is definitely a track you don't want to get loose on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever taken a trip here to Brands Hatch in the car myself and not visited one of the sand traps around here, maybe the wall as well, simply because the tires wear out here and they just don't come back. Like you said, you're abusing the tires around this racetrack. It's not a very abrasive track. It's just the speed that you carry in the turns. It's how much you turn, exactly like you said. So we're all agreeing here in the booth. We're taking the tires. We'll have to see what the drivers decide, though. They might disagree.
And also, we already know there's, well, maybe we already know, but there was early pit stops from 2 of the cars or 3 of the cars. And did they take tires or not? But even if they did, they're still running about 50 minutes on the same set of tires, so they're going to be struggling towards the end.
They sure will be. A few more Stewards decisions coming out. Racing incident between the 223 and the 39. Warning for car 991 for dive bombing car 39, resulting in avoidable contact. No further action between cars 7 and 41. Racing incident between car 67 and 181. Racing incident between car 67 and 481. 15-second penalty for car 247 for taking out car 41. Position was given back. A 15-second penalty for car 41 for rejoining across the track, pushing car 481 off and into the pit lane wall. We didn't see that, but there's been a pit lane incident with car 481. So therefore, car 41 has received a 15-second pit stop. Racing incident between cars 311 and 181. Racing incident between cars 12 and 991. Drive-through penalty for car 67 for taking out car 161. Position not returned. Racing incident between car 197 and 29. Racing incident between car 183 and 29. And I love the Stewards' decision here for that last line. Both drivers deemed at fault.
McLaren. I wonder if our lovely Ryan Gill can find the pit lane incident with the 481 and the 481, because the 481 I don't think is driving anymore. I think has decided to bring that. Just we can't find that incident, unfortunately. But the 481 I think has decided to pack up bags and go home. I did see him pull off to the side right at the beginning of the race, 2-3 laps in, which is unfortunate. But they were yellow flagged for a while, so maybe that was the incident. And because they were at the end of the pit exit, and they weren't the ones coming out of the pit lane; they were going past it on the actual track. So I wonder if that's why. And it seems like it, but yeah, it's definitely not something you want, is to get hit by a car rejoining.
Certainly not what you sign up for when you go out there and try to drive your best. Of course, you got to keep your head on a swivel, certainly, and danger can come from anywhere. A little bit of a different thing happening here. The track is mostly shaded because of how late in the afternoon it is. It's just about 7:30 p.m. in sim time, but the sun has come out. It was fully cloudy for the majority of the time. Now it's only partially cloudy, so the sun's out. Might that do something to the track surface? We'll have to find out about that. But just I was noticing some of the shadows, very, very long. Some sun peeking out from some of the sections. A little bit less than 45 minutes of the race left to go. Tan continuing to build his lead, so is Merrill's on Seville. And meanwhile, Berrier, Sherritt, Patterson, and Foch all still in a line together. No major movement out of that group. Savalainen has recaught Jardier. Remember, Jardier passed Savalainen a little bit ago. Savo has caught back up the Jards, and they continue that battle for P9.
Just looking back at Samir Foch, and his last lap was a 22.9. His fastest is 22.6. So he is still a lot faster than the guys in front of him. And just looking at deltas, he is within at least half a second of Patterson. So we're definitely seeing some fighting going on there between a few of those drivers that are fighting. What was it, fourth position, was it? Yeah, it was. So that's going to be a big battle later on, and see how the pit stops work out, and see who's the quickest and who comes out in front. Oh, there's a car off there on the left. Well, who was that?
Oh, that's the 223 that has gone off, and that was Allen. That's Joshua Allen, the West Competition Racing car. That Porsche has had a huge off. Now, I don't suspect that was assisted in any way, and they've had a huge off here in the final turn. Were they trying to get into the pit lane? It doesn't matter. They've not been able to turn in. They very wisely kept it onto the dirt. They're going to stop here on the front straight, and I'm afraid that's looking rather like a retirement.
Yeah, I want to know how the car re-snapped. I don't know if it could have been hot tyres were really slippy, or just the grass being on the tyres just made a little snap. But yeah, Porsche very easy to snap when it's like that, and yeah, unfortunately couldn't make it to pit lane and decided that was enough. So it's quite sad to see one of the two Porsches deciding to call it a day.
Well, one more racing incident between the 29 and the 183, that on lap 15. And, well, we had one of our stewards in chat go ahead and confirm it, but we can confirm it from our position. There's nothing else going on. They've absolutely caught up. It was a messy start to the race, but it's been fairly standard ever since. And considering nobody is scrambling into the steward's box right now, I'm forced to believe that Allen's incident was self-inflicted at the time. Otherwise, there'd been some paperwork flying in the office adjacent to ours, but there's not. So there isn't. What we're trying to do, folks at home, we're trying to find what happened to the car that got forced into the pit lane. It was a very strange incident, I think we can all agree, and we're trying to find that for you. Please bear with us as we have pulled away from live images for the time being. Little radio RCI in 2023. But I will say we'll try to find it, but if we can't, we do apologize for that. But as reported, there was a car hard into the wall. And then obviously you saw a little bit ago, Allen's incident does appear to be self-inflicted themselves. A lot of that going on, Ted, a lot of drivers going over the limit of the car, of the racetrack, having self-induced spins. Easy to do around Brands Hatch.
So easy. It's knowing how far you can push a car, and sometimes you think you know how far, and then you can just make one small tiny mistake, and yeah, you are literally in a wall like Allen was. And that looked like it was on corner exit as well, so could have just ran too far on that curb. What was that? It was out of Sterling's, and that curb's quite chunky, and for these cars, they're quite low down to the floor, and you definitely got to catch the underside on them, and it does throw the rear end off. So I guess that's what happened, and it just snapped him into the wall. Yeah.
I could be wrong about this, but remember Neville in the 22, I believe it is, they had a lap 1 spin in Sheens, or entering Sheens, I think it was, and I don't think that showed up on any of the stewarding reports, which leads me to believe that that was also self-inflicted as well. And it will happen here, especially now. And I know this sounds slightly silly to those that maybe are unaware, but because the sun's come out, that's changed where the shadows are. The fact that there are casting shadows now, certain parts of the racetrack are glaring, the sun is glaring, it's hanging low in the sky. That's also changed your sort of visual memory of where the track is now as well. You should never use shadows and stuff like that for braking, obviously, but that's not what I'm talking about. The light level has changed, and also where the big casting shadows are have changed as well, which change your depth perception and other types of perception for where accidents are, or where the hot zones are, and that can also create incidents. I wonder if anybody's been caught out by the sun coming out here today.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out for people that didn't see, the 181 has done a pit stop. That was during our last intermission, sort of a little breaky thing we had. Also, the 999, sorry, has done their pit stop. A few people done their pit stops now. Still got 38 minutes of the race left to go, 36 minutes left of pit window. So I have to see where Dylan Tan, Barrier, Foch, see where they decide to pit. Obviously, Dylan Tan's got a 4.5 second lead over Hugo Merrill's, so you know he's pretty comfortable. Just has to keep his pace consistent, and I guess he sort of chooses when second place does their pit stop. It's one of them. It's like a little bit of a mind game, isn't it, Jesse?
Most of racing is a mental game. I think John Madden for football, American football, used to say 90% of the games have mental, and while that isn't how math works, I don't believe, it's still a true statement in a way where if you're not mentally right for a race, you're not going to be there on the pace chart where you need to be. And I think a lot of times drivers get in their own heads a lot, and whether they'll tell you that to your face or not, they get in their heads about stuff like that, and you have a bad lap and it takes you a bit to get your confidence back, and you have a little bit of a half spin. Some drivers, complete opposite of that. They are unfazed by everything and anything. One would only need to look at Kimi Räikkönen in the world of Formula One to know that they called him the Iceman for a reason. Valentin, Barrier, and Neville into the pit lane. They will drop down the order for the time being. Aaron Trout and Fry had previously completed their stops. Agaronikov has a 15-second penalty in 23rd, so that will further set them back. Sasha Death, of course, has the 15-second penalty as well. Barrier's stop looks to have been clean, so is Neville's, so they will just essentially resume their fight for what could potentially be fourth place. Might it be more? I will say those stops seemed a little bit too quick to take tires, Ted, if I do dare say so.
Let's have a look at some of these pit stops from what we can tell what people have done. Obviously we haven't seen how long they're sat there, we don't know if they've taken tires or not, but Barrier, a 58 second pit stop compared to Neville's 1 minute and 1 second pit stop. That's a two-ish second pit stop difference. That could just be not getting in the pit box correctly, not being perfect in the pit box, and it has to ACC has to reset it so it's perfect sort of thing. Very annoying when it moves you about a lot and you waste loads of time, because it doesn't do the pit stop straight away. It has to move you and then it will start doing it. So maybe Neville just didn't get a good placement and Barrier did, but it's all we really can tell from the front runners. All the other pit stops are a minute 59, so I guess it's just, I guess at the minute that's just placement. I'm not sure if that's tyres.
Could very well be. We'll know too, folks at home. You'll be able to see it yourself by looking at the deltas once everybody's done with their pit stops. You might see a couple of cars jump each other, having better stops than others, but beyond that, the pace differential will be obvious. New tires to used tires. Some tracks it matters quite a bit less. Here, Ted alluded to earlier, it matters quite a lot, and it's all about how much it's worth to you. A lot of the gaps are very finite in nature. 5 seconds would more than double a lot of these gaps here. That was not a great run for Aaron Trout, and that has allowed Fry to go up the inside of Druids, and absolutely no fight from the Aston here as the 181 of Fry says thank you very much. I think Aaron Trout realized they were dead to rights there. Or maybe he's playing the long game because he's coming back up the inside now, look. And he's got him.
He's a fight from the back end of the pack. I love to see these fights. You know, we always look at the front end like, oh, they're fighting, it's all for big points and stuff, but I like seeing the guys at the back that either have struggled in the beginning and just haven't had a good race, and they are still fighting for some. Oh, that slide from that Porsche, that was a bit scary because they like to snap on you and send you into a wall, as we saw earlier with Joshua Allen. But just some things to point out. The 12 has got a drive-through and has parked it in pit lane, as you can see on the screen there. The 45 was a stop and go 30. That's for speeding into the pit lane, so more harsh than the DT, more speed over the pit limit. So that is not too great from the 45. That will drop him back quite a bit, because you just sit there for drive in and sit there for 30 seconds is ages. And then off you go again, and your tyres will cool down. Oh, John Daly joining into the mix there. And it's going to be a three-way fight for this 18th place.
Well, the 12 of Seminara has a drive-through, as you said, and that did not show up on the penalty report. The 991 does for a drive-through penalty. 991 taking out car 22, position not return. So that explains something to do with the 22. Yeah, that explains what happened there. The 991 had an altercation with Neville. The Neville has now dropped back. That should be outside the top 10, or maybe just barely inside of it. Neville is not having a particularly great race. They won't look back fondly on this one, I don't think. Agnarodikov still has that 15-second penalty, but the point I was bringing up about the 12 is that drive-through was not given out by the stewards. That was either track limits or speeding in the pit lane. Yeah,
and I'm not too sure. I was not watching them at the time, so I can't really pinpoint what that was, but it is a shame.
Yeah, so we'll try to figure out what happened exactly to the 12 to get them that drive-through. That could have been minor speeding. It could have been track limits. What we do know was not steward applied. Tan still out front, leading the field, has not pitted. Samir Foch and Merrill's the top three for the time being, but that will certainly change simply because Hugo Merrill's has pitted out of the P2 spot. He was only a couple of seconds behind. Tires could make a world of difference here. Does Hugo not take them, trying not to lose any more time and hoping and praying that Tan does, and maybe ends up in front of him and does his best defensive driving impression. Radiani in the pit lane in the 29 Honda. Sasha Death and Louis Alexander, the other two cars that have not pitted. everybody else has done. The BMW coming in, Louis Alexander getting out of the middle of that. Jonathan Seville, though, the Pole Sim Sport car, has a mirror full of Radiani here. It's trying to make that very, actually, no, excuse me, that's a different Honda. I've just realized that's Valentin Berrier behind them. Oh, wait, is that Valentin Berrier? I am so confused.
No, Barrier's only just left the pits going around the first hairpin now. I don't know who that is, Jesse.
What Honda
is it 161?
is that? It's a 161
22nd place.
Soloncev, yeah, okay. Soloncev absolutely baffled me there. Daly around the outside here is going to get passed up by the Porsche in question of Fry. He's not trying to let Soldatov through, playing them very close down at a Paddock Hill bend. Looks to me like Soldatov has the... Wait, that's not Soldatov. I've just realized that's John Eraser. I'm all 6s and 7s in here, Ted.
I didn't realize it was John Eraser because he's got grey on his car instead of black this time.
Yeah, that absolutely threw me.
Yeah, this is good fight from Daly. It's very tricky in the Bentley. It's definitely out of its class for racing the McLaren here. Obviously, Eraser didn't get good qualifying, so maybe it's not Eraser's track, and Daly could take advantage of this. But we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, there's a Honda behind and the Porsche in front, but the Porsche's getting away a little bit. But we'll have to keep an eye on this. This has been raging on for a few laps now. Solotov has just come out the pit lane, so Daly's on warmer tyres, better worn-in tyres, but obviously Solotov has got... sorry, Eraser, wrong car. Eraser's got worn tyres.
Oh, Eraser off the racetrack!
Yeah, that was close. Nice driving from all of them, and here comes Solotov. Now the right driver is attacking the Honda there, so this could be a four-way battle for that 16th place or 14th place, probably, if they catch up with that Porsche again. 28 minutes left, Jesse, and it's already kicking off.
Surprised Dylan Tan hasn't come into pit lane yet, Ted. I mean, everybody else that he's fighting has. Dylan Tan is trying to do the I guess the overcut here, trying to stay out as long as possible. Also might be trying to fill out what Hugo did in the pit lane to retaliate with their strategy. They might alter it based on how that... Actually, no, they have pitted, in fact, because I'm pretty sure I just saw Hugo 5.5 seconds off. So Dylan Tan has now completed their pit stop. The 144 leading. Sasha Death coming into the pit lane. That will complete the cycle of pit stops. Valentin Berrier in 4th place, all by themselves now. That sequence of pit stops really extinguished that fight up front. So we're going to see, can Hugo Rails make any time on Dylan Tan out front? It's 5.5 seconds, 27.5 minutes left to go. I would reckon that's just about enough time to catch him and make the pass. He's got to get a move on.
Yeah, just like to point out the 45 with the drive-through in pit lane. That is I think the second time they've got track limits and obviously a drive-through penalty. And it has been sat there for a while, so I'm guessing that is a retirement from the 45, which is a shame. But this track is hard to not get those track cuts. You're trying to push every corner as far as you can, but you just push it too far and you rack up those penalties, and next thing you know, you got probably 3 drive-throughs under your belt. But yes, it is very difficult.
Keep in mind, this is one of those tracks where running wide can get you a track cut penalty as well. Running a little bit too wide, ACC assumes you're gaining an advantage doing so. It's so easy to run wide. This is an old school circuit that hasn't really changed too much, if we're completely honest. There's some safety features that have been added as it modernized throughout the generations, but other than that, it's still the same track they used to race on, and it's so easy to run off here, especially in machinery this quick, and that requires very precise movements, and you can rack them up. I mean, the 45 has done exactly that. Sad to see that happen, but some weeks you just gotta take it on the chin. It's not your race.
You see in proper real life racing driver, real life drivers, they they don't have a good race all the time, do they? They have days where cars don't work, electronic issues, they themselves aren't working properly. For instance, they're just not in the game, and then sometimes they just come out with an amazing win. So it happens to everyone. It's it's not just a sim racing thing. We see it all over the motorsport nowadays, and obviously it's a big kick in the teeth when you don't have a good race, but you just got to try and come back strong the next week.
One of the truest life lessons you could ever learn, folks, in racing is the reality of you can't win them all. That old saying is never more true in motorsports, and motorsports is a very, very cruel mistress on top of all of that. Dylan Tan, by the way, out front has the Speed Juice fastest lap of the race, and he was on pole. He's trying to get a maximum points day and walk away here today with the championship lead, a day where Savalainen has made some progression out of 10th place into 8th now. As the championship leader, though, it will be of little consequences. Dylan Tan has done absolutely everything they could possibly do to get points here. They would end up the championship points leader if they went on to win this race, would Tan. Merrill's not really catching him. It's been 5.8, 5.6 seconds the gap. It's definitely not coming down. Time is running out. 5.5 seconds back to Seville in third, who's had an incredibly quiet race. We followed the very fantastic battle for 4th place earlier on, but that has all separated things from the pit stop. Barrier by himself, 3 seconds behind him. Sharon and Patterson 1.3 behind them. Foch in 7th place at the time. Neville, of course, we saw, or we talked about what happened to the 22. They got turned, and that allowed Savalainen and Jardier to get through. What's interesting about that, Savalainen was trying to make the pass on Jardier. Last we checked, he has done that in some semblance, either during the pit stop cycle or right before it, up into 8th place. Aaron Trout started outside the top 20, almost in the top 10 here.
Yeah, that's very good racing, and it's just consistent laps, especially around this circuit. We've seen the drivers make user errors, and if you don't make those errors, you gain a lot of time. That Porsche sliding again, like it's them rears in that Porsche. It's just, I wonder if Frey has just eaten up the tires too quickly, and yeah, it's just losing it. They pitted on lap 16, so a while ago now, and yeah, I wonder if they've just been pushing so much. You see the rear end just sliding every now and then. Good to hold it, but you don't want to keep sliding it anymore. You want to try and control that, else you're just going to really have no tyres left. And Jordan Daly and probably Solotov will come by pretty easily. Just having a look as well at the pit stops, what we were talking about earlier, Jesse, have people taking tires, have not. It is between 58 seconds and a minute between almost everybody that has done a normal pit stop, let's say. So I'm guessing everyone has taken tires, which is the thing that everyone should do. So yeah, I think that's answered our question from earlier.
Yes, indeed. As the race does continue on, Samir Foch, the Ferrari Enjoyers AAA, it hasn't not had a Samir Foch style day. We're used to seeing them qualify okay, but come up through the field, and it just hasn't happened for them today. I don't know what exactly has not gone to plan, but they just haven't. It might be a product of the racetrack, but certainly I feel like in 2022, we had a couple of races here. Samir at least got inside the top 5, and keep in mind he is threatening Patterson for 6th place here, so it might not be all hope is lost. Maybe there's a little bit of magic left in that Ferrari Enjoyers car. We'll have to see what he's able to do in the final 21 minutes. Stalking Patterson, getting as close as possible. That's one of the best ways to go about it. Get as close as possible. Fill up the virtual mirrors, the rear view cameras as they are now on modern GT3 machinery. Maybe force a mistake here, get a run. looks like Bosch does have the speed. Looking down at the inside of turn 1, that might have just been the dummy, not actually meant to be a passing maneuver. You can do that to set him up into Druids, and he's going to go around the outside. He obviously can brake a little bit later than Patterson can, but it doesn't matter. The run off the corner better for Patterson. Sees that they survive another couple of corners at least. Kieran Patterson, the JP Motorsport car, looking back at the Ferrari now. This is not what you want to see. This is what the camera in the car sees, though, from Patterson's perspective that they have in the cockpit. It kind of lets you know what they're doing, how aggressive they're being. And also, I think, usually in a race, Ted, that determines how much you defend. If they're being overly aggressive, a lot of times in races like this, you got to calculate if it's worth it to defend or not.
Yeah, thing is, if they're being really a slide from Fosh, jeez, that's a good hold there. It doesn't lose too much time, but definitely going to hurt them tires. But yeah, if you see someone trying to dive you, trying to get into the corner before, like alongside you, and just really pushy, if you try and close the door and they do go for that dive and do commit, they could knock you off the track. It might not hurt them too much, but it will come back on you, and it could be your fault. It might not be your fault. It depends on what the stewards think, obviously, but it's going to ruin your race completely. You know, if you're in fifth, like sixth place like we are now, you got seventh behind you. You don't really want to mess around too much. Rather than getting hit, you probably want to take seventh and try and fight back, and you be the aggressor.
Keep in mind, behind this a little bit of a ways, you have John Razor, who is trying to fend off Rattiani in the 29 Honda as well. They're fighting. Daly and Louis Alexander fighting over 17th place, but this is the furthest battle up the field for the time being. And if Bosch can get this done, I'd be quite curious. It's not too far, only another second or so up the road to share it in fifth place. Oh my goodness, mowing the lawn, ladies and gentlemen. The world's most expensive lawnmower is that Ferrari Enjoyer's car.
You're saying about Daly, I just noticed as well, coming from the stewards, the 197 got a drive-through for track limits. That's why he's dropped back, and you can just tell he's really trying to push that Bentley. It's definitely not that car's track, you know, so he's just trying to gain every advantage, and he's just 4 times too much, and he's got himself a drive-through, which is not great, but he's still racing and still, you know, still spots he can probably get back. Still 18 minutes left, and like we always say, Jesse, we always say this: anything can happen.
Anything can happen, and anything will happen. You can guarantee it. It's motor racing, and most motor racing stories, why they make such good stories, is because if you didn't see it happen, you probably would assume it was made up, and that's the great thing. And talking about Daly, for instance, in that car, the only Bentley in the series, certainly a driver of his caliber and knowledge base, probably came into the day knowing that I'm not in the best car for this particular racetrack, and kind of knew it was going to be something like this, probably expected some issues today. So that's probably why they're getting on with it, continuing the way they are. A lot of times as a driver, you just have that knowledge of, it's not going to be my day, but I've got to get through this race, get some points, do something with it, get to the next track where I can do some damage in the championship points. And certainly one of those days for the 197, certainly that kind of day for a lot of drivers who have received track limits penalties today.
Just noticed as well, Dylan Tan's doing 22.5s roughly, and he is almost coming up to lap these guys. As you see behind, Razor's just come out of the straight, and the 144 has just entered the straight and already lapped Jordan Daly, as you see on the track map there. So Tan is moving, as they like saying. So is everyone else as well. Cody in the 38, Cody Sharon, a 22.602, their best lap of this session, with 16 minutes to go. So they also are pushing, trying to catch Valentin Barrio.
Well, certainly this battle has hotted up a bit. Aaron Trout in 12th place. I thought they were looking forward to Billin, but no, they're having to look behind them. They've got Fry and Konstantin Soldatov behind them. It's a three-way fight for P12. And of course, if you are Konstantin Soldatov and you can see Aaron Trout, you know that's at least 5 more points, championship points-wise, that you could potentially have. One at a time, though, has to get by Michael Herman Fry for at least one more spot here. Everybody playing it nice and chill. Nobody overdriving the car here, as we've so often seen in a lot of battles today. Everyone driving to their limit, but no, might the Porsche's straight line speed be a damning factor here? And it has been. That almost looked too easy, like Fry didn't want to battle him.
Yeah, well, like I've said, the rear end, every now and then, it just has a slip, and I wonder if there's just like, I don't want to lose this, or giving a flash of the lights, so I wonder what that's all about, or just basically...
I think that was respect. I think that was, you know, sort of a you're welcome, thank you. Drivers have a lot of ways to communicate on the racetrack, and despite the fact that the flash button on the lights only does one thing, it can mean about half a dozen different things, depending on the situation. But in that case, that was a go on then, get a move on.
But if they constantly keep pressing it, then obviously the car in front's done something they don't like. That's a really obvious one, I think. We've seen that quite a few times, Jesse.
I once knew a driver, and I won't say who, because it does sort of expose them a little bit. They knew a bit of Morse code, and they knew how to say not nice things in Morse code, and they would flash people in Morse code to let them know how they felt. And my argument was like, well, they don't know Morse code. He goes, no, but it makes me feel better.
Well, that's fair enough. As long as they know what they're saying, it's all right. It's one way to get your frustration out, I guess. Just so you see in the background there, Foch really close to Patterson. Can't miss their cars. A pink and blue, it is pink, followed by a red, because obviously you can tell it's not red, it's pink, but we'll, I think we've already gone past that one.
Pink is red, though. It's just a version of red.
Yes.
I will give that. We'll have to get Katrina in here. Katrina knows about colors more than I do, so surely she'll be able to tell us exactly what colors are and what they are. So I don't know. I've got elementary learning on the subject. I just assumed all pinks are red, in the same way that what is it? You know, you've got black and white. One is all the colors. One is none of the colors.
Yep.
And you know, gray is just a little bit of both. Anyway, moving. I've been told by Ryan Gill, our broadcast producer, that black and white are shades, not colors. And that's also probably not true from an artist's sense. I think artists believe that one is all the colors and one is no colors, the absence of light, or something. I don't know. What's your astrological sign, Ted, while we're on the subject?
My star sign, God, you used a big word. That is very hard for me to understand. That was a big word, Jesse. God, like, let me brain compute that.
I can't spell it if it makes you feel better.
Scorpio.
You're Scorpio. I can tell that as a Scorpio, you're very confident and moving swiftly on. I don't know what we're doing at this point. Dylan Tan, 6.1 seconds out in front of the field. That was 5.5 seconds a couple of laps ago, so they are gaining back some of the time. Now, it wasn't for 6 seconds a few laps ago. I wonder if Tan had to navigate some particularly rough traffic and lost a little bit of that time, but they've gained all of that back and then some. We watch this battle back here. This is one of the only, if not the only, Lamborghini. Got the number 7. Simon trying to hold on to that car, under fire from Louis Alexander. And that was very scary looking from the Lamborghini there.
Yeah. The only Lamborghini, which is, I'm quite surprised there's only one, but I'm not sure how the Lamborghini holds up nowadays. I know it used to be a pretty good fast car compared to that. That's another thing. We've got no Audis in this champ. Just noticed that. That's, I did not expect that, but there we go. Just seen that the 161 has a drive-through at the minute. Guessing that is, just seeing a little note from Tom Bryant saying it is a drive-through for track limits. So That is not great, especially with 11 minutes left of the race, but it is what it is. As we see here, Fosh still on the back end of Patterson.
Yeah, no movement here. Especially with how aggressively Fosh was driving, you got to be careful about that. Several cars have gotten drive-through penalties for going outside of the track limits, not necessarily cutting the track, but going outside the limits. That we talked a little bit about how that's possible here, and I think Fosh has reined that in a little bit. Patterson, though, has not really had to defend too much. They've not cracked under pressure, and they've even gained just a little bit of the gap for the time being. And I will tell you this, if you are Patterson right now, your worst enemy is that thing at the top of the screen, that clock. Oh, that was a big off there. That could have potentially got a track limit warning, depending on how far off the track they were. But if you are Patterson, your worst enemy is that clock. You look up at it every corner, and of course it's moved by a few seconds, right? But it feels like it's taking an age. These 10 minutes, if you're going to race under stressful conditions, it might feel like it's adding an hour to the race and taking a couple of years off your life a little bit as well.
Yeah, just looking at the lap times, Fosh was a bit slow with that lap. Obviously, he had that little bit where he went wide, but they were low, really low 23s, both of them. So they are matching pace, and 9 minutes left. That's what Patterson wants, is matching pace. That's all he wants from Fosh. He doesn't want him to go faster, but obviously he's got a second gap now, so that's going to relieve a bit of pressure. But yeah, you never know. Patterson could be on 3-track warnings, another one as a drive-through. Could be the same with Fosh.
We have breaking news coming into the RCI broadcast booth. Alan Patterson has joined us in chat, and we believe that to be the father of the Patterson that we have in the race. Now, I don't know if that was a joke or maybe it's a sibling being a bit funny, but either way, the family Patterson has arrived to see them defend P6 here late in the going. And Alan Patterson, if you're not familiar, that's Samir Fosh behind him. That's one of the best drivers in ACC. Don't let Samir know I said that. But that's a big ask for the final 8.5 minutes, but they've done it for 20 minutes so far. Let's see if they can keep doing that. Michael Herman Fry, by the way, has continued to try and hound the back of Aaron Trout for 13th place. Soldatov is through into 12th, and they have 3 seconds up the road to Wouter Billen right now. I think one of those Astons was off the track just now, but makes no difference. The HRF Motorsport car trying to stay in contact with Aaron Trout now.
Yeah, just looking at Daly's delta between him and the 29, and it's pretty big, 14, almost 15 seconds, and that's what happens when you get a drive-through this late on. Like, everyone's pretty spread out. There's really only 2 fights, maybe 3 fights that are going on. We've got the 4th and 5th, 6th and 7th, and you've got 14th and 13th and 14th. That's really the only main fights going on. Daly was sort of in this at one point, and then yeah, the drive-through came along and removed him, if you like, and put him, it's only 2 places, but he's just got no one to get any toe off on the straight. He's got no one to fight, no one to put pressure on. So, you know, a drive-through now for anyone is going to be basically like end racing.
By the way, just a confirmation, Papa Patterson in chat, welcome in. And son's doing well and driving a pretty fantastic race here. Might have had a shot at a top 5, but that has dried up, but still holding on to 6th place, not letting Fosh get any closer. Keep in mind up front, Tan driving away with it. Merrill's 7.4 seconds to gap the top 3, unless anything crazy were to happen. They're pretty much set in their ways, the podium that is. Barrier, though, has been caught by Cody Sherrod, which is the teammate of the Patterson clan. So still a battle for P4 on the way, as all of those PWSR drivers fighting for top 5 spots late in the going. Oh my goodness, Herman Fry has just been given a 5-second penalty, Ted. What's that about?
37 turn 3 involved in the 991 and the 999, which is not that car, but warning for the 999, avoidable contact. 41 and the 161 on lap 36 turn 7, racing incident, minor contact. And here we go. Lap 37 turn 3 involving the 999, the 181, 5 seconds for 181, causes contact with the 999, takes the position. So that's what that's for. So if they didn't take the position, I think that would have been a racing incident, but just taking that position just for a little bit is that 5 seconds. That's going to really hurt with John Eraser behind them 2 seconds. So
yeah, I was just going to say that's going to be very close, because with Fry only being 2 seconds in front of Eraser, that will bump Fry down, and Eraser will get extra point or two for themselves in the 699 McLaren, and that will trouble Aaron Trout a little bit less now, knowing that it doesn't really matter if Fry gets up close to him. He could let him go, and it will probably not matter as long as he's able to stay in close contact. Like Alan Patterson saying, it's a great dice. Nerves are strained here, though. They certainly are. They always are when it's your kids. Doesn't matter if it's virtual or not. It's the pro field, after all. It's the big boys, if you will. And speaking of PWSR driver Cody Sherritt trying to take the battle to veteran Valentin Berrier for 4th place. A nice points haul on the line here. Both drivers trying not to make a mistake, and the engine might be in the same place for both these cars, but I'm going to tell you, the difference between that Honda and the McLaren, it's night and day.
yeah, I think the McLaren has got the advantage on this track, but the power from the Honda is just keeping it in front just about. You see it under braking, just closes the gap quite a bit, and then on the power, the Honda just moves away just a tad, and especially on that straight, it definitely will move, but look at that, under braking straight back up the rear end of Barrier, and it's one of those where both cars are good in different areas, and that's what's frustrating for the drivers is it's hard to catch up or overtake as we see they're coming from the 7 Lamborghini back marker, but it shouldn't be. Might actually get in the way during this second half of the track into the third part of it. Gonna probably get in the way just a little bit, but shouldn't be too bad. But yeah, it's very difficult when two cars are not the same, so you don't really know how the other car really reacts to the track.
It's quite interesting seeing what's happening here as we show you the views from the helicopter cam. It shows you the slate of what's at stake here. The Lamborghini, that's the number 7 of Kubaki, getting out of the way very, very sharply and wisely doing so, allowing the battle to commence for 4th place, realizing there's bigger things at stake. And speaking of, Berrier holding up Sherritt just a little bit, I would argue, because Patterson, who was more than 3 seconds off of the back of Sherritt, is now catching up. It's 2.2 seconds, who again is also being chased by Samir Foch. Precious time left, under 2 minutes. It's 8:10 p.m. in sim time. The sun's gone away. It doesn't matter anyway. It's fully cloudy. The track cooling off as well. And one final wild card thrown in, and it's these drivers right here all battling for what is looking like to be top 5 places. The question is, will Patterson and Foch catch up to Berrier and Sherritt at the end? If they get side by side, Berrier and Sherritt, I think they will get there.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very close. Only a few laps left to go between these drivers, of course. First and second are first, second, and third are just doing their own thing. I've seen Dylan Tan, his lap times have slowed by a second just because he's got a massive gap, and Merrill's not really doing anything really anything faster. So Dylan Tan's just cruising home for the win. Whereas we have these fights going on, these guys can't relax. These guys have just got to be staying focused as long as they can, and. Yeah, it's not easy when you've got someone behind you that is matching pace and is in your slipstream. It is very difficult.
Close racing, nerves are jangling, and the tension is palpable here at the end of this race. they might get one extra lap. Now, the reason I bring that up is, remember, it was the 25-second mandatory stop. You only needed to take on 1 liter of fuel. However much fuel you put in at the start, it's indicative of whatever your strategy was. Some would have went light on fuel to go quicker in the beginning and gain more time and spots. Some would have fueled up, trying to take less time to fill up, not having to use the entire 25 to do that. Some will have taken tires. Some will have not taken tires. It's all to play for here inside the top 5. Berrier over Sherritt. They are neck and neck, right behind them, 1.7 seconds to gap. Patterson and Foch, all it's going to take is 1 or 2 corners with the 4th and 5th place car side by side to bring the next group up to them. And closing in now a little bit is Sherritt, trying to get as close as possible to the Honda. Looking down to the inside, it's a dummy, not trying to move here in the final turn. They will likely be on the last lap here one more time around.
It's going to be very, very close. Patterson now 2.2, so drop back half a second, so I don't think there will be a fight with them 2 cars behind joining the fight. So 2 separate fights going on here, and we still have 13, 14 fighting as well. Don't forget about those guys, but there is a 5-second penalty on Frey, so we'll be taking the 13th, may keep the 14th to stay ahead of Razor, but it's all eyes on these guys up front for the time being. It's so close. One mistake, one little bit of off track, going wide a tad, cut the corner wrong, get a weird bounce. It's going to change the game so much. But there was a yellow flag.
991 is off. That's Soldatov. That was P12 who have had their issue. But what can you say about the Legion of Racers 144 McLaren? Dylan Tan got bested in round number 1, but showed up to play today. Dylan Tan is going to win the race, and he's going to get maximum points and take the championship lead after 2 races. Just a brilliant drive by Dylan Tan.
Congratulations, and Miles in 2nd place, and we'll see the 97 come across the line. Now in 3rd place, well done, but it's all eyes on these 2. Sharon can't make a move for 4th place, but very well fighting there. Followed by Patterson and Foch for 6th and 7th. Very well fighting from all those, from those guys there. Yeah, it was brilliant racing.
It was fantastic racing. The best case scenario is no accident and a good show, and that's exactly what happened there. Did not put a foot wrong, did Berrier. Did not put a foot wrong, did Patterson. And they got the positions that they deserved, just keeping their competition at arm's length. Everybody else coming across the line. Foch, Savalainen, Jardier, and Neville, your top 10. Bill and Aaron Trout will come across the line next, and Fry, who might be, I'm pretty confident, the last car to come across the line. We'll see.
So there's a 5-second penalty there for Fry, so I want to see where that will put them, because we don't have a delta anymore between them and Eraser. Have they got 5 seconds to keep 13th place?
I'm unsure what's happened, but Eraser, who should have been quite close behind them, is showing that they crossed the line first. They might have been caught in between the leader, meaning that they were lapped. So, yeah, that doesn't matter if only one of the cars was a lap down. So Fry's going to be able to keep that position is the long and short of it. Ted, it was a good race today. A little bit of a messy start that led into fantastic battles up and down the grid, as we expect here. A dry Brands Hatch, all things considered, but a good, hard-fought race today brings Dylan Tan to the championship lead. The question is, can he stay there?
It's a big question, and he's a very good driver. We've seen him many times before. I'm going to say that he's got a really good chance of winning. I'll say now that he's going to win this.
Ted Edwards picking the championship leader. There it is, confirmed. The fastest lap, the pole position, and the win. Maximum points day for Mr. Tan in the 144. That's exactly what he would have wanted. Hugo Merrils helps his effort in the championship as well. He could feature as highly as 2nd place after all the dust settles today. Seville, your final podium position. Berrier, Sherritt, Patterson, Foss, Savalainen, Jardier, Neville, your top 10. Savalainen dethroned as your championship leader. The rest of the finishers and non-finishers scrolling on your screen now. Race number 3 in 1 week's time, the 27th of January. Set your calendar. We're going to France. Paul Ricard is one of the most polarizing tracks in ACC, and we're going there for race number 3. Cars that were good here may not be as good there. We'll have to tune in to find out who has the dominant day. Ted Edwards, what are your predictions for next week, manufacturer-wise? Certainly, you've got to take the Honda.
Honda, yes, fast. Merc can be fast as well. Obviously, Savalainen taking the win at, was it Monza? So, you know, another fast track, got that long back straight for Ricard. I want to say Mercedes. I want to say Savalainen.
Good pick. That's a fantastic pick as well. Of course, we'll see you next week. We invite you to like, subscribe, and hit the bell on the way out so you don't miss a single race here. We thank you all for being with us tonight and every night here on RCI TV. Of course, it doesn't matter what we have, or it doesn't matter what you're interested in. We've got races for you. We've started up our iRacing series as well. A couple of things in the iRacing vein as well. The Okayama 3-hour race coming up, as well as the Charlotte 75, a race near and dear to my heart. It's the Pro Stock Cars at Charlotte. It's going to be fantastic. And of course, the Road Series Season 1. You've got GT4s and Mazda Cup cars on the iRacing side. And here on ACC, we've got the 6-hour Challenge Esports Series. It is a minimum €8,000 prize pool. It could be higher. For more information on the buy-in and how to get involved with that, go to our website, racerci.com. And don't worry, if you are more into the community-driven side of racing, then we have a parallel series, the 6-hour series that runs alongside of that, free of charge. And of course, the Night Out Season 12, which starts February 11th or 10th, I think. And that is the next Night Out series coming to you in February. Signups are open for that as well. We hope to see you there. And of course, the Monday Championship continuing this Monday. John Dalton leading the cast for you on that. It is the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Cup, and it has been electric so far. And again, you can sign up for any series already in progress by, well, going to our website, racerci.com. Join the Discord, get involved today. And of course, a big thank you to our partners that make this race and every race possible, AK Informatica, for providing our server solutions, Driver61. You can go to driver61.com and get 25% off your driver coaching when you go there. Driver coaching can make you a better sim racing driver, and it certainly has worked for some of us here on the staff team at RCI. And Fanatec and Fanatec.com. Please feel free to use our affiliate link when making quality sim racing hardware purchases from Fanatec.com. Doesn't cost you a thing, and it tells them that we sent you. It helps us with things like server cost and the like. When you use it, please and thank you. Thank you for those that have already done so. Well, before we leave tonight, we do have the championship standings as of round number 2. Ted, take it away.
Yeah.
These aren't updated.
Just a few technical issues as always, and I'd just like to say, while we have this little brief time, Ryan Gills tries to fix his little things in the back end. Anyone who's doing the 24 Daytona on iRacing this weekend, I wish you good luck, because it's a very difficult one, and I might even see you out on track.
Yes, of course, a lot of the for the second year running, I think it is, a lot of the RCI staff here are doing the iRacing 24 of Daytona. There's no iRace or RCI event or anything. They're just doing the normal event, but it is a fun time for everybody. I always like seeing, Ted, which one of your teams comes out on top.
Yeah, we've got the LMP2 and we have a GTD Ferrari this time round. No one in the LMDH unfortunately. But
Isn't Will Stevenson's team in the LMDH?
no, yeah, it's the CLR team, a mix and match of guys. Tom Bryant's in that one. Ryan Gill, Will Stevenson is in. We've got Tom Roberts as well, and Stewie Benjamin Harman is in the LMP2 for our team. So there's 5 of us in that one. So it's going to be fun.
It sure is going to be very fun, and like he said, good luck to everybody in that race as well. RCI Goes iRacing coming to you as well. We hope to bring as many of those races from a broadcast perspective as we possibly can. There's certainly a couple that I would like to do. We had our very first iRacing broadcast before Christmas last year. We promised at the beginning of 2022 that we would have iRacing on the platform, and we only just made that deadline, but we did get it in there. And so many people on the back end here of the staff team that have worked to get the iRacing series is plural because there's more than one, up and running. They have done that, and we thank them for their effort.
Yeah, it was. I took part in that race in the MX-5, and it was fun to race something other than ACC. You know, spending 2 years or so on one sim it gets a little bit stagnant after a while, and heading over to iRacing for a bit just changed that up, and it was a really good race. The race went well, not many incidents to be fair, which was very nice to see, and I think everyone else who took part as well really enjoyed it, and yeah, as you say, Jesse, more on the way.
Keep in mind, if you're interested in doing iRacing with RCI, join our Discord. We've got some information on how you could get a 3-month code for iRacing to join us in some of our inaugural series. Follow the link in the description. Our stats are not working, so I'm just going to give them to you out loud. Of course, keep in mind, there is a drop round in this series, so everyone's worst finish of the 2 will be omitted. So the standings are this. Dylan Tan has 72 points now. Savalainen has 68. Hugo Merrills has 58. Jonathan Seville has 53, tied for 4th place with Joshua Allen. And outside the top 5, Valentin Berrier on 48. Cody Sherritt and Samir Vosh tied for 7th place with 44 points. Kieran Patterson with 40 points in 9th. And Radiani in the 10th place spot with 37. Outside of the top 10, of course, you've got Sonsev Jardier, who makes his first appearance and is in 12th place. O'Brien, Neville, Billen, Soldatov, Fry, Aaron Trout, Mellis, and John Eraser is your top 20. Outside of that, you have Seitman, Louis Alexander, Daly, Kubaki, Death, Gohan, Ognarodikov, Simonara, and Efraev are still in the championship, and Javier Marquez has retired from the series. Those are your updated standings as of week 2. That will look quite a bit differently as we go to Paul Ricard next week. Thank you all for watching. I've been Jesse Lee, joined by Ted Edwards with Ryan Gill on the cameras. We will see you next week from France, and until then, have a good night.